You're listening to Nurture Your Zest. I'm your host, Ashleigh King, and I will introduce you to a wealth of interesting, fascinating individuals from all walks of life who will share their stories, how they've overcome challenges, and you will find out their top tips for success. Through this podcast, you can gain tips to grow and change your life and the way you see the world, and help you to nurture your zest. Hello and welcome to Nurture Your Zest. Today you're joined by me, Ashleigh King, and also Michelle. I'm really delighted to introduce you to Michelle Jones, who is a wedding planner, because this is a very special Valentine's Day episode. Welcome, Michelle.
Hi, Ash.
Thank you so much for joining us. And would you like to tell us about yourself?
Yes, I'm a wedding planner. I own Michelle Jones Weddings, and there's obviously two strands to that business. There is the wedding side of it, which is the romantic wedding planning for couples. And then there's the consultancy side of it. So you've got MJ Wedding Planner and MJ Wedding Consultants.
That's great. And I'm really excited to hear about that, because it's a job that I've always loved the idea of, and also been scared of as well. And I think lots of people are. I'm sure there's unique challenges you get when you are organising weddings, but it's a very special time for people and they want the day to be perfect.
Mm-hmm. Yes, precision is everything. And it very much so is part of my life, that everything's got to be just so. It's that attention to detail, and it works really well. It's that neurotic tendencies that are within my nature that work well within the industry.
It's so nice, isn't it, when you can use your strengths in a way that really flows nicely and matches what you do. Actually, when I wanted to be a wedding planner, I realized now I wanted to be a creative stylist. I wanted to make things look pretty, but I really didn't like the detail and the, this is going to happen here and then. And, so I think it's really good that you've got those skills, and I bet it helps so much in your role.
Yes, I tend to, there's a saying that I will use quite a lot within wedding planning. It's about managing expectation within the practicalities. And obviously the practicalities don't change, but the expectation changes all the time with each individual couple, and obviously what's on trend and what's happening. So it's just ensuring that all of those meet and come together precisely to create that the individual perfect day.
Absolutely. And the dynamics of weddings is complicated. It's the family dynamics and mother-in-laws and bridesmaids and friends falling out. And again, as you say, it's expectations. And I guess working with your couples through that can probably be helpful.
Yes, it's a role that takes a lot of people management, and I love people. People drive me. I like to make them happy. I want to help, but I'm really curious and nosy about people as well. So I'm on the journey with them, and I enjoy getting to know them. And then I want to obviously fulfill their needs to the end of it. But people management is obviously tricky. And I was fortunate enough to have some life experience through work experience to help me understand the way that people work when they are dealing with situations that are highly emotive. A wedding situation has a lot of emotion driving it. It's a project management role with high emotions and a lot of stress.
Yes, I'm sure. And I bet some days are crazy. And on that note, is it just you?
Yes.
Okay. So do you sometimes take on some freelancers or get some help, or you've been running for about 7 years now, so do you feel like it's a slick machine? Or
yes, I work independently, and I choose to work independently so I can offer a blank canvas. I follow trends, but people aren't trends, so I don't deliver to trend. And that allows me then to work with a range of suppliers, which is brilliant for me to be able to offer clients exactly what they want to their need, but it assures that the services that are being delivered are unique on each occasion. And I always like meeting new people, and I like supporting new businesses as well. And we've got a lot of creative industries within the Northeast. It's great to celebrate them. if I had an in-house team, that would prevent me from being able to fulfill that need for both the client and myself.
And also your suppliers you're working with or as a consultant for, when you're offering the unique service that you do offer, you can match people better, so you can reach the type of clients they are looking for.
Yeah, it's all about personality. Fundamentally, it's matching personality to personality as well as practical need. So you take into consideration everything from their budget through to obviously makes them laugh and take on the day. So if you've got a photographer, they need to gel with the couple. And if there's no chemistry, it's going to impact the day massively. Everybody's like a little clog in the big, massive wheel of the wedding day. And if there's like a little chink in it, it then doesn't all work in the same motion.
It's really funny, actually, because I know we're going to talk about some of the worst things that happen at weddings or Valentine's Day, but actually, I know somebody who got married and then their wife ran off with the photographer. And I guess these kind of things do happen. So sometimes there can be no chemistry between the couple and the photographer, and it can be a bit awkward, and sometimes maybe too much so. So, it's amazing the stories you hear about weddings. All kinds of things happen.
Well, life happens, doesn't it? It just happens, and it can be anything from I had a wedding where a groom scalped himself just before the ceremony. So obviously concussion, he needed to go to A&E. These things just happen that have a huge impact. I've never had one that's run away with a photographer. So I've had to discipline a member of staff for getting rather close to a guest on the dance floor. So I've had that situation before, but never where I've had the bride of the grooms actually do a flit with somebody.
Wow, exactly. I think it's Polly and Me. There's a film with Ben Stiller, I think, and Jennifer Aniston, but something like that happens where the bride runs off with a scuba diver and you're thinking, oh my goodness, on their honeymoon, what happens?
Yeah, well, there's the famous film as well, isn't it, with the wedding planner with Jennifer Lopez, where obviously the groom ends up falling for the wedding planner, which is...
But as you say, life does happen, and it is funny. We should laugh, but yeah, I guess some things make you laugh.
Yeah, and you can't plan for some things like that. You can't plan for.
Absolutely. Okay. I would like to know. So, how did you get into the wedding industry? What has your career been? How did you start that up?
When I was 5 years of age, I was a bridesmaid for my aunt, and it was the mid-80s. And obviously there were huge weddings in the 80s, and lots of taffeta and silk and frills and lace, and there was all that going on around me. But it felt electric, and it really struck me like lightning how amazing this day was, but also amazing I can remember really vividly little elements throughout the day which I questioned and wondered why, and picked up on. And then I slightly got obsessed with the wedding industry. Well, not that I knew there was an industry with the world of weddings. Off the back of that, we had a royal wedding, and that really then obviously got me going. And I did everything from designing bridesmaid dresses and floral bouquets to dressing my sister up and forcing her to play weddings, all these different things that you get obsessed with as a child. But because there was a tendency in my nature to constantly focus on detail, even down to my schoolwork, it was always, how can I present this better? The creative side of me, it stayed with me. And I had this dream, even though I didn't know what it was, to be within the wedding industry. And it was actually when I watched Father of the Bride, when that came out, early 90s. And I was like, oh, you can be a wedding planner, and that was huge. So it was this big thing that was like, oh, I'd love to become a wedding planner. But I followed the industry as well from the other side of it. So I was very interested in performing arts and musical theatre, and went off to college. And whilst I was at college studying performing arts, I was also involved with the show management. So I would show manage all the shows we were in and the event shows that we would be doing, and ended up going on a bit of a journey with that course that led me onto doing an arts, events and media management course at university. So I'd applied for stage school and I'd applied for university places. At the time, there was only 6 universities that had events. Is it now? Obviously, every university have got them in, but there were 6 in the country and only 1 had the course within the art school and not the business school. And obviously being creative, I was like, that's definitely the one for me. And fortunately enough, that degree course, I was met with quite a lot of opportunities to get involved in radio, TV, local arts events, big national events as well. And that my journey just continued from there. Obviously loved events, worked with in and out of the industry, but I also took jobs like you do within a creative industry to harness my skills in other ways, and as well at the same time as bringing in a steady income. Because back in the day, sort of, there wasn't the leisure lifestyle that we've got now. So having to earn your keep as well as wanting to follow your passion needed to sort of meet in the middle. But it was an older lady a more mature lady I'd met on a train journey, and I was having a chat to her about what I was doing, and she'd said to me, you need to learn people. The best thing, a bit of advice I could give you is learn people. So I did jobs where I was obviously within people management, so I worked in what used to be personnel, which obviously we now know as HR, and I worked on some really difficult cases, really personal cases. And the skills that I learned from that help me every day now within wedding planning, in terms of understanding people's needs and meeting people's needs and ensuring that their personal care is taken care of. Then that was all honed during that job as well. So I'd toyed with the idea of setting up my own business straight off the back of leaving university, and I'd tested the market and realised that I was very young, had a lot to learn, a lot of life lessons to learn, quite immature, and in terms of trust, people weren't going to be able to trust me with one of the most significant days of their life and a huge amount of money. So the risk factor for them would have been too high, and I knew I needed to go out and learn my craft, learn some life skills, learn the lessons, move forward. When I moved from London to Newcastle, I tested the market again, and there wasn't the market potential at the time in Newcastle. Moved forward a few more years, and I'd had my first child. So at that point, I thought, oh, right, I'm mature now. I'm old enough and people are going to trust me, and felt more comfortable in my own skin, and dumped the imposter syndrome and thought, right, yeah, this is good to go. And it was actually, I was in the process of starting another business and was given a mentor through the Prince's Trust. And obviously through coffee, it went through my whole sort of career path with them and my education and what I loved. And it obviously spoke about the fact that I wanted to set up a wedding planning business, and that I'd done weddings through the events industry, and that was my favourite event to plan and work on, because it was that personal connection, and I loved it. I thrived off it, and I really that's what I wanted to do. Didn't want to just do a wedding here and there. I wanted to do them all the time. And the mentor at the time just said to me, well, why aren't you doing it? And I was like, I don't know. So that was the day. I just thought, right, let's go, let's do it. And I've not looked back. And that was in 2008.
Beautiful. Mm-hmm. And how did that feel, to say, actually, I'm going to get out of my own way. I want to do this. I love it. Why not?
Mm-hmm. It was really exciting, quite scary. And just, it was as if the whole world had opened up to me. And that fear of yourself, you put up this big, massive wall that obviously has yourself wrote across it and you can't cross it, so, you know, that you've built for yourself. When that comes down, it's quite liberating. And I remember being on my own after it and being so excited, but quite content as well. So it was a real serene feeling, but really a really good feeling as well. You know, and obviously then I started that journey of developing a business plan, which I enjoyed the whole process, you know, and I never really questioned how is it going to happen. It was just that belief. All of a sudden I had this belief that it was going to happen. Whereas the two previous occasions I'd had a list as long as my arm of why not to do it. Whereas I was actually left with all the reasons to do it in that moment. So it's that whole thing about when the time's right, it's right. And it definitely was at that point.
That's really exciting. I love hearing stories like that and hearing how you've embraced your passion. I think that takes so much courage, and it's hard, isn't it, when you're sitting feeling stuck or not sure where your place is or what you should be doing, and kind of looking around thinking, is this it? There's more for me. I know there is. And that's actually, you know, a big part of this show is finding those times or those people who are stuck, and through these conversations we can get a bit unstuck. So I hope that your story of following your dreams and passion there will inspire lots of listeners. I do want to ask a bit about Valentines. So do you find as a wedding planner that you get lots of guests around, not guests, excuse me, new couples, new engagements around Valentine's Day?
Yes, well, over the years, obviously, it comes in waves of trends of the different when people get married. 2020 is slightly different because last year was a quiet year in comparison to previous years, and this year is a huge year because it's 2020. Everybody wants, obviously, the 2020 and 2020 was a big day, and lots of people got married on that day this year. And it's just that sort of symbolism of it. So I'm interested to see what's going to happen at the end of this week on Friday. But Christmas and New Year is engagement season. You know, it's the highest season in the year. But then Valentine's does follow that. But I always think Valentine's comes at a nice point. It's such a short period of time after Christmas and New Year that if the opportunity didn't arise and you're still walking around with that ring in your pocket and you're still trying to get the confidence, then you've got the opportunity of Valentine's when that comes along as well. So, but yeah, if people, it's romance, isn't it? Valentine's all about romance. And if people feel that they want to take that step, it's a beautiful day to do it on.
Absolutely. I'm a big fan of Valentine's, actually. I love I'm a big romance fan anyway, and I love romantic novels or poetry, or I think I find romance in nature, you know, in just things around me, appreciating the beauty of things. But it's interesting because Valentine's has also become very much a commercial thing as well, and lots of people have rejected that. So I wanted to ask, have you ever had a Valentine's Day that was the worst day ever?
Well, I manage chronic illness, and in the year 2000, like 1999, 2000, I was incredibly poorly. And I remember February 1999 for Valentine's, we'd tried to go out and I couldn't. And then the following year, I was really, really not well, really struggling to manage what was happening. And I wasn't at uni at that point. I'd had to come away, I'd had to defer. And so I was actually miles and miles away from my boyfriend, who was a massive support system to me. So I just remember feeling horrendous, because at that moment I was just existing. I wasn't living. And when days like Valentine's come along and you're trying to manage an awful situation, it amplifies it. So I just remember, although I loved my boyfriend and I wanted to be with him desperately, I just shut myself off from it all. You know, for somebody obviously who dreamt of being in the wedding industry and love people and love to share like the whole love and things like that, for me to feel like that was just heartbreaking. You know, so it was really difficult. Really difficult.
Absolutely. That sounds so difficult. And also, thank you for sharing your story of going through, you know, chronic illness, because that is, it must be really difficult to cope with. And especially at a young age as well. Mm-hmm. When we're a lot younger, we don't know how to cope with things. We think, mm-hmm. what's going on with me? And actually people have that around Christmas as well, or Easter, or big dates where there's this expectation around everything should be perfect, or, you know, you've got to make the Sunday dinner and the Easter Sunday lamb, or whatever mm-hmm. it might be, the Easter eggs. You know, there's all this expectation. And that's really interesting that you felt that way. I'd like to come back to the chronic illness later, but I did want to ask, well, say actually, my worst Valentines ever. I made these cookies. I used to have this trend every year. In South Africa, we would post like flowers or love letters or cookies when we were in middle school. And I used to have this annual tradition of baking cookies and dipping them in chocolate. And then I'd wrap them in cellophane, and they were always hearts. And I did that for a boyfriend one year. It wasn't a serious boyfriend. We didn't even kiss. It was one of those first crushes type mm-hmm. thing. But he actually gave them to somebody else.
Oh, no.
On Valentine's Day at school. So, I was devastated and also mad because, you know, mm-hmm. that's like huge rejection.
Mm-hmm. I know you're saying it wasn't a serious relationship, but when you're young, that has a massive impact and significance when you move forward. You know, I mean, I hope you don't cry every time you see a heart-shaped biscuit now, because I would.
No, I don't, but it does make me laugh. And he's happily married now, and he's got mm-hmm. beautiful kids, and I think it's great, you know, and it just makes me smile because, you know, it was just a friend really when I look back at it. But I was so cross because I was, you know, I'd sent these hearts, and I wonder now, looking back, like, did they taste okay? You know, you go through all these funny things in your head, and it does make me smile. Mm-hmm. But on the other side, I did have my best ever Valentine's was my lovely husband, Paul, proposed on Valentine's.
Yes.
So he did an indoor picnic, which reenacted my favorite story as a child. I was obsessed with Minnie Mouse, and she wanted to go out and have a picnic, and it was raining. So her friends threw her an indoor picnic instead.
I love a carpet picnic.
Me too. Mm-hmm. But so that's how he proposed. And even now, you know, this Valentine's Day, when this episode will be released, we will be having a carpet picnic, and that'll be really nice.
Oh, that's lovely. See, my favourite Valentine's is more about pudding than my boyfriend, who is my husband now. So, but yeah, it goes down as my favourite Valentine's purely because of the dessert. And we'd gone to a restaurant in London, which is where we lived at the time. Beautiful meal. And then they had this special dessert, which was creme brulee cheesecake. And I can still taste it now, and it is still the best dessert I have ever eaten. But that Valentine's was all about the pudding. It was amazing. Even my boyfriend will say it now, like my husband, sorry. He'll still say, like, that was your favourite Valentine's, and it was nothing to do with me. It was all to do with the food. And I was like, yes, it was.
Wow.
The pudding was immense.
I can't even imagine still tasting something from years ago. That must have been a really special pudding.
It was amazing.
Was it a very special restaurant, or was it, because sometimes you can go to a very ordinary restaurant and then even that can stick with you.
It was just an Italian, you know, so it wasn't a flashy restaurant, anything. I mean, we were new in London at the time and had hardly any money, so it wasn't like an amazing sort of high-end restaurant, although the food was incredible. You know, it was absolutely amazing, and it was a lovely evening. So I think everything around it built up to this one perfect dessert.
But that's so lovely, and it's so sweet. And maybe one of the reasons you loved it and it stayed with you so much is when you're skin or you don't have loads of money, you know, luxuries are such a treat. So that's really a special, you know, a special celebration. I love that. I'm really glad you shared that. I'd like to know. So you. I'm just getting very excited now. I want pudding, and I'm distracted. You were talking about coping with lifelong illness, and I wanted to ask because you're a mum, right? Yes. So you're a mum, a businesswoman. You're very kind. I know that's one of your biggest values and one you really care about. So you're doing a lot for other people, paying attention to details, remembering the birthday cards, you know, all of these things that make people feel special. How do you look after you, and how do you cope with things when you're not feeling well?
I'm not great at self-care, though obviously people are quite good at self-care in terms of exercise and going for a massage and doing things that they enjoy doing. And I'll say, I'm not very good at doing those things. I never get my nails done or anything like that. And I don't meditate and things. But then on reflection, it's understanding what self-care is to the individual. So my life is full of things I love, and I get to participate in those things every single day. So as you say, I'm a mum. I've got 2 children who I absolutely adore, and they were gifts. And even though I run a business, I still think of myself as a stay-at-home mum. So I'm still get up in the morning, breakfast on the table, and we cycle to school. And then on the evening, obviously, I pick them up. So that doing the school runs is really important to me. And as well, because I never thought I'd get to do that. And so that for me is like quite precious. And I have a bedtime routine that I don't have anymore because my eldest is 12, and I did have a little tea when that come to an end. But still with my youngest, where we have this obviously story time, and that's really precious. So those moments to me are self-care. And then obviously I do love to help other people, and my charity commitments are really important to me. And for instance, tomorrow I am hosting a sponsored bounce for children, and it'll be little ones from the age of 3 up to the age of 9. And they've all obviously taken a sponsorship form home. But for like 4 hours, I will be shouting and cheering hundreds of children, bouncing their way through the day to raise money that's going to go towards enrichment opportunities. And some of the children have never bounced on a bouncy castle before. Some of them have real difficulty with gross motor skills. Some are quite shy. Some of them are really competitive and have been working on their bouncing technique all week. And I'll just smile through about the entire morning, and then all day I'll be absolutely elated, and that'll carry me through the rest of the week. So although I'm being quite physical tomorrow and it is tiring, and it's not like sitting down and relaxing, for me, that self-care, that feeds my soul, you know. And when I'm helping other people, I need that as much as they need it. So, and then obviously on the other hand, I am a wife as well. And so on Friday is Valentines. And although we won't be sort of going out for a meal or doing anything flash, in my head, I'm like, right, we'll have a really nice tea. And then as a family, we'll make sure we sit down, pick something we all want to watch and have a really nice, relaxing evening, open a bottle of wine. And although it's not sat meditating, it is quality time as a family and just giving ourselves the opportunity to relax, and that self-care. And it's just understanding actually there's little moments in my life that I need, and that helps my well-being and supports my well-being, although it might not be seen as self-care. But then every day as well, I also get to work within building, obviously, romance in the field of love, and developing, obviously, opportunities for happiness and special moments, which when you work in that environment, you can't not help your well-being through it as well. So I do feel very lucky that the lifestyle that I have constantly supports my well-being and constantly feeds my well-being and it allows me to sort of keep going from one day to the next.
I think that's really special, because it sounds like what you've done is you've designed the life that you want to live, you know, and everything you do, we say nurtures your zest. You know, you are looking for the things that make you smile and make you passionate, make you curious and creative. And I think it takes a lot of courage to decide how to do that. And the other thing, I guess, something I'd like to work on more, or I am learning, but I think when you are more detail orientated, you can also be better sometimes at boundaries, because you can see where you need to say, okay, here's a different compartment. I need to put things in their places. And I think that's a really special skill actually for protecting your energy and things like that. Yeah,
it is. And it's funny when you say the word boundaries, we tend to think about saying no. That's quite a popular concept at the moment, that actually it's good to say no. But it's whether you're saying no and yes to the right things, and whether actually moving elements of your lifestyle to accommodate what you want to achieve, and not saying no to things just because you can't fit it in. It might be just readdressing the structure and supporting it that way, because it is a real hot topic at the moment of sticking to your boundaries and saying no. But I do then think that people might be cutting themselves off from opportunities as well.
Absolutely. And I think flexibility is very important. You're right. And you never know what could come up. So what I've found recently is workload's gone crazy. Yeah. I'm working on TEDx Newcastle University, which is a big event in 88 days. And also being an MBA student and the podcast and various other things. And what I'm finding is I love LinkedIn, so I get a lot of coffee requests, and I love coffee. So I want to go and have coffee with everyone. But actually, many times I've had to say now, I'm really sorry I can't meet you. And that feels awful, because I keep thinking, but it's an opportunity I'm going to miss. But actually, designing your life around what you want and what's a priority and what's important to you is really nice. And I love that idea of what you said as well about being there in the morning, to facilitate the school run and school cycle. That's really good. You're getting some exercise there with the kids. Yeah. They're getting some healthy exercise. You're setting a good example. It's environmentally friendly. I'm a big fan of all of that.
Yeah, cycling's really important to myself and us as a family. But obviously the age of my children as well, they embrace obviously the current need to adapt our lifestyles so that we protect our future. So we've always cycled to school, so it's not obviously a new thing. They're just consciously aware of it now. So even on days where days like today, we didn't cycle, because yesterday we did cycle and my little girl had an accident. So whereas this morning she was still saying, oh, but it'll be fine to cycle. I'm like, no, it's really not after yesterday. So, but they're consciously aware of it as well now. So there's the one side with the environment, but as you said, there's the physical side of it as well. But for me, cycling is, for anybody, I can't recommend it enough. It saved my life at one point, and it was a real crux, and it still is a crux for me. It's something that I use to be able to get through and get from A to B a lot of the time. The thought of having children used to frighten me, because I didn't think I'd be able to do things like the school run. But actually I can, because of cycling. And even on days where my symptoms are really aggressive, I still get them to school. And that for me is a massive, massive win. And it's through cycling that allows me to do that.
Absolutely. And having that space to look after yourself and that thing that you love. Again, that's a real theme that's coming through, is that passion for doing what you love. And I'm really inspired by that. So thank you for sharing that. I would like to know something. So you just spoke there about in the environment. I'm also very, very interested in the environment, and, it is a hot topic at the moment. We're looking at plastic, we're looking at all sorts of things. Being a wedding planner, how much do you see in the work you do in the industry anyway, I wonder if you can comment on
sustainability and the impact of the environment.
Yeah, in weddings.
I think the wedding industry actually is, obviously it does work to trends, but a few years ago the industry started to look at sustainable products, and with catering it was a big one. So rather than obviously plastic utensils and things, if someone was throwing a huge like barbecue or garden party or the hog roast and things like that, and it used to be that it was all plastic that was dished out, whereas we transitioned a number of years ago to, which was a very trendy thing, obviously to the wood, which looks better and obviously can be recycled. Even obviously the cups, a lot of venues used to be plastic cups, whereas obviously now the facility is that if they can't have glass, then it's keep your cup for the entire evening, and obviously you'll get to scroll your name on it. So it's not a throwaway obviously lifestyle. It's a keep with you and keep using it, otherwise you haven't got anything. And for me, we seem to be going back to where we were, whereas it's before we used to be very much use once, throw away. Now it's very much of how can we reuse it. So at the moment we've got vintage bridal gowns is on the increase, where we used to have the trend where you wore the same wedding dress within your family. So if your grandmother wore it, you were wearing it, or it was there was elements of the fabric cut up to make christening gowns. We're seeing more of that happening at the moment. There's some beautiful stories, and it was really funny because my little girl had mentioned to me a few weeks ago, well, she hadn't mentioned, she'd asked me, could I wear your wedding dress? And I said, of course you can. She said, because I'd really like that, and then I'd like my little girl to wear it. And I was like, that'd be a lovely idea. And I said, but actually, that's what used to happen. So I told her all about it. And then she questioned why it stopped happening. And obviously, I didn't have the answer to that. And I said, but then we obviously did a bit of search on the internet and looked for a few stories where she could read about, obviously, brides now doing that exact thing. There was a lovely story recently about a bride who asked her mother and her grandmother and their friends to all bring their bridal gowns, and she tried them all on and picked her favourite, which actually was her grandmother's, and it fit her like a glove. And I just thought that was a beautiful story. But even down to flowers now, obviously fresh flowers are beautiful, but they go in the bin the next day. So there's lots of florists that obviously moving away from fresh flowers and offering artificial flowers. And times are changing, so they're looking more realistic. Trees is a huge, huge move in the right direction because they have so much impact, but they can be used time and time and time again. So the beautiful blossom trees that you can hang baubles from, and that are in wedding designs for my brides this year, that I've absolutely just fell in love with them. They've just rocketed and everybody's just fell in love with them. And what it means is that there's nothing being cut. They haven't been shipped over either, because that's the other thing. It's not just actually we've got these products here. It's the journey those products have been in. So if they've had to be imported, it's all the mileage and
it's a supply chain, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And that's an interesting thing. I'm finding it interesting as well how big hen dos have got, going away for the weekend.
Yes.
To Manchester or Ibiza or all over the world. Some people are going to Las Vegas for the girls, and that's amazing. And I think that can be quite a big cause of squabbles with bridesmaids and friends.
Yeah.
Because if you've got several friends getting married at the same time, you're paying to go all over the world and then buying a gift and buying a dress and paying for your hair and your shoes or whatever it might be. Do you find that you get lots of these types of questions, or were you having to help your brides cope with situations like this?
Yeah. Often I'll be asked for some support in trying to manage it. I don't tend, at the moment, I'm not seeing as many couples opting for hen and stag do's to be overseas. They tend to be, at the moment, predominantly UK based, which accommodates people's needs. And because I think brides and grooms are developing more understanding of their guests' needs, and it's not just a hen do that they might be paying out for. It's a new outfit for the wedding. You know, it's overnight accommodation, travel, and as you say, if you're in that catchment group, everybody's getting married. So there's not just one wedding, there's potentially several weddings to attend. So it's people, I think they've seen the generation that's just gone and understood the outlay and appreciating, people's situations a little bit more. But yeah, I often I ask that question, what do you think I should do? What do you think will work? What do you think it'll keep everybody happy? But I always say to people, be open and honest. What do you want to do? What is the most important factor in this time you're going to spend that you're going to call a hen or a stag do? What's that most important factor? And try and stick to that. Doesn't necessarily mean having this huge, massive celebration. It might be something as simple as going to see your favourite movie. Hiring a cinema screen out and having your favourite movie and drinks with friends. So it's actually presenting people with alternative options that they might not have thought of that meets their exact needs.
I really like that idea, and I like the idea of alternatives, maybe non-alcoholic alternatives. There's so many different brides you get, different faith groups, different circumstances. It's really nice to hear that there are trends like this where people are thinking about alternatives, and that's really good to hear. We've actually run out of time. I can't believe it. We've just been chatting away.
Over.
It has. Can I ask before you leave, what is your number one word that you use to nurture your zest?
Kindness.
Kindness. I thought you might say that. Okay. All right. And do you want to explain that quickly?
I have a little motto. So I live my life by a little bit of kindness makes the world sparkle. And I really believe it, because for me, if you're adding sparkle to somebody else's life, you're feeling that spark as well. And it's just that little bit of something that helps everybody, as you say, nurture their zest, their zest for life. And so it just makes the world a nicer place. And I know that sounds really corny, especially from a wedding planner, but it does. It makes the world a nicer place. And we've only got one opportunity at this life. It's not a dress rehearsal. It's the main show. So I think if we can be kind in it and we can help it sparkle, then it's only going to do us all the good in the world.
Oh, I absolutely love that. Okay, let's go and spread our sparkle everywhere. I came in with such a bad mood. I'd had a long day at uni. My head was sore, and now I'm full of nice thoughts. So this is lovely. Beautiful. And happy Valentines, everyone.
Yes.
And please do sparkle. Thanks for coming on, Michelle.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Nurture Your Zest. You can find us online on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram and LinkedIn at Nurture Your Zest. If you've liked today, please subscribe. You can also leave us a review if you're feeling extra kind. Today's podcast has been made available through the kind sponsorship of TL Multimedia and That Branding Company. We look forward to catching up with you again soon as you learn to nurture your zest.